because your life could be hijacked because of stupidity. Why? Because you weren't taught the proper things. So one of the critical things is financial planning. You're exactly right.
I just think like you read a book like Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. It's so vague, but it gives you so much enthusiasm, and it's a great lesson, but it's just so vague. It's so widespread. Learn about insurance, learn about borrowing, learn about buying. I bought this piece of land. I used 3 acres. I rented the other 17 acres. That rent paid for the 3 acres. But it leaves out a lot of detail. Now imagine if we started, this is my thing. We started like when I talked to Jackson Lamer, he said churches are the most underused real estate in America. We started a Monday morning. They don't have a mass on. Then nothing's going on Monday. We gather these kids together. We give a plated meal with real plates, real forks, real knives, real glassware, and then we talk about this book. Read this book and let's discuss it. And then we dig into it. Research one section of this book. What about borrowing money to buy real estate? And we talk about that in a group session. And it's over and above education because I've made the point they're never going to reform the K through 12 education system. And the point's been thrown right back at me. The teachers union is the most powerful union in the world. So nothing's going to change, right? Okay.
Well, let me interrupt you there. When I took tests, if it said never or always, it was usually wrong. Eventually, in an evolutionary side, something will change.
Absolutely.
And I think education is in the process of changing. Why? Because it's failing. And as it fails, it has to be changed. So that's where I would take a little bit of umbrage with what you just said. That I say you can't fight it. You do everything you can, but you work towards an improvement. And the improvement says you exist, but I want other choices. I want charter schools. I want homeschooling. I want all the different forms that we have, whether it's Montessori or whatever, because what you're doing in controlling this with your union and what's her name that's in charge of it, she's just terrible.
I know. Man.
They have failed our children, and it's all about them in teaching. And there's some great teachers, outstanding teachers, but they're not being given the best environment. They're not given the support they need. And what we want is outstanding teachers with the proper support, utilizing the developing technologies. AI is developing. So it's going to play a role. And eventually, the teacher union as it exists today is going to find it's in a different form.
Jeff, when my kids were in high school, they asked me to give a speech to the juniors and seniors. And I said, so you think, this is all 25 years ago, so you think $50,000 is a lot of money? Question mark. And I walk them through over 30 minutes where that goes in a house budget. And their eyes bulge. And 50 became zero very fast. Today it'd be 100, 150, whatever the proper number. But that's the financial literacy that's not being used in a classroom.
And we need that. We really do need that. And it just needs to be accessible to children one way or another. Whether we reform education as we know it, or we go around the mountain, because really, truly, kids can spend a lot of time doing this kind of thing rather than playing video games.
You can make it interesting. One of the things that I asked Log Peters, we've never actually had a discussion about this. He gave that speech. I've got one of us saying, look, you go in and you say, what do you want in life? So I'm dealing on an asset basis. He's dealing on a cash flow basis. Those are two very important concepts. So you've got a balance sheet and you say, look, what balance sheet do I need to have this home, to live this quality of life? What does it cost to have, if you were to take a house and describe what you wanted, let them imagine something, but then attach an actual number to it and say, what does that house cost in this nice area? You want to be in a nice area? That house in this nice area costs this amount of money. What's a mortgage cost to take to supply that? So you ask questions that you let them, their imagination go. You let them say what they want. Okay, great. I'm not painting this picture. You're painting this picture. Now, how do we take this picture and deal with economic reality?
And that's an incredible thing. You know, I remember when President Bush W, I think W is the younger Bush, talked about how we're at the highest levels of home ownership ever. And I remember certain advertisements that showed a picture of this beautiful home, $800 a month. And my son said, Dad, look at this. And we were here. And I said, yeah, that's principal and interest, but there's still tax and insurance. And then as the house gets bigger, the electric bill gets bigger. And then my guess is that houses in a homeowners association, who knows what their aspirations are and what their fees are going to go to in the
Exactly.
course of the first 3 years you get there.
I keep a spreadsheet based around these things. I know what I've spent in every area for the last 20 years. It's on a computer. And I got it told. I got by percentage, I got everything else. And I'm not suffering as much stress as I would suffer if I didn't know those numbers, because I want to know that I've got enough money to take care of different things. And we live a nice life. I'm not exceptionally wealthy, but I'm comfortable, and hopefully it remains that way. But knowing what your cash flows is, which is what Peter was referring to in his explanation to the kids, is incredibly important. But it's understanding what the balance sheet can do for that cash flow is also very important. So cash flows, profit income statements, statement of cash flows, and the balance sheet stuff, assets and liabilities. If you understand those, you control your life. And guess what? Your life is an economic life. You live within this process. If you don't understand it, you're at peril. But if you don't care about it and you just say, oh, I don't need to, I'm tired, I'm not going to educate myself on it. Well, that's fine, but you're not going to win the battle in meritocracy. You've got to understand these things.
Absolutely. And that's such an important lesson that we need that kind of spreadsheet, that kind of thing, because my whole background for work experience has been restaurants, right? I was a restaurant manager. We get a great employee. We promote him to bartender. 2 weeks later, she drives up in a new car. I make the car payment on Friday. Yes, honey, but what were you doing with Friday's money before you got the car? Because were you paying your rent with it? Because you only got so many Fridays in the month. And did you do any thinking about the fact that the car payment's enormous and the insurance is going to go from the car you had before, which was basically you didn't even have collision insurance.
You hit it on the head. You hit it on the head.
It's like, and you know what? And I'm not saying this to be condescending, but generally the car turns into a repo. They start getting down on life in and of itself because, like you said, it's an economic life. They feel like they've been duped.
Yeah, and people feel down like, they weren't treated right. Now, wait a second. Have you taken advantage of the opportunities? Have you ever seen in history any nation that has achieved the success and economic distribution that the United States has achieved? It hasn't happened. This is the most successful nation in the history of mankind. Now, are we making mistakes? Yeah, what Peter talked about, the national debt is just phenomenal. If we don't start getting the uses under control, which is what you're talking to here about with children, et cetera, the sources thing is nice. So she got a source. She got an increase in the process. I'm going to buy myself a car. Did you think through it? No, you didn't.
No.
You want in the long term. Maybe I ought to make some investments and grow up. Maybe I ought to use a more conservative car so I get myself established so I can be more and more comfortable, but I'm going to let the money compound for me rather than for the people that I'm paying the interest to.
And I always talk about with these kind of courses, just say we put me, you, Peter, Kevin, Jeff, Coach Trippy, whatever, put together these kind of courses. I always tell my wife, you talk to the kids, you make so much sense. I say, you never think they're listening. They never listen, but they're always listening. Kids learn a lot from adults that are willing to give them time of day. They learn a lot. It doesn't mean that when they leave the lesson of Pete and Kevin, they're not going to go out 2 weeks from now and buy a car. But it does mean if they make that mistake, just like we said, at a young age, you can always come back from a 90% loss. As you get older, it's a little more difficult to come back from until you run out of time. But when you're younger, you can always come back from a 90% loss. You can come back from a repoed house. Then comes the whole notion of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki buying 20 acres, renting 17 of them. If you're younger, buy a house, rent out 3 rooms, let them cover the whole mortgage. Yeah, I mean, I don't want 3 strangers in my house now. That's no longer an option. I see some guy waking and baking in his bedroom. It's going to be a real issue. We're going to fight and I'm going to throw him out the front door. But when you're younger, it's an option. And you have this, and just like you said about the America, the system, the economy, this vigorous economy, whether it has gyrations or not, whether we in literal recession, there is so much opportunity. Generally speaking, recession and depression, we create new billionaires in America every time. because there's so much opportunity, and young people can really learn to seize that opportunity. Granted, on a smaller scale, or Mark Cuban says it best: in America, it's easy to become a millionaire. It takes luck to become a billionaire. But we could have a lot more millionaires in America with people. If you guys wrote a book like Robert Kiyosaki wrote, but be more specific than he was, I think it would be a great way for you guys to do your next book. Because
We've talked about, I don't know whether it'll happen or not, because we're both 75. But I would like to add one issue. In all this process, we've covered a lot of good topics and presentation on the stuff between your very excellent questions. And there's one thing that we haven't talked about, and that's leadership skills. So I'd just like to mention them. There's two key items in determining whether a person is a quality leader, and that is credibility and inspiration. But those two terms, as important as they are, really built from their subterms. And I'll just list them real quickly: integrity, selfless behavior, dependability, consistency, determination and perseverance, teamwork, collaborative skills, communication skills, charisma, courage, sincerity, and authenticity. If making an authentic statement is to have a real merit to it. Those, to me, are an excellent list of things that are so important, because we've got people that call themselves leaders, and you got sycophants that, are the yes men behind them, part of their staff or whatever. But a true leader is a leader among people that are several levels below them, and they identify them as their leader, as opposed to a guy introducing someone to speak and say, here's our leader. Now, he's a manager. Now, if he's a leader, that term is bestowed upon that person from several layers below that he does not come into contact, or she does not come into contact with. And that's what's, to me, is really important. Vision is a separate skill from leadership. And in vision, it's that reverse logic thing, quantum leap logic. You come back, you give a good solution to a problem with our litmus test: sustainability, consistency, strengthening fabric, harnessing the power of pursuit of self-interest. And those ingredients, along with the concepts of the chapters of the book, we think really could hit home. And the value in this book is really educational. We haven't had anybody as an influencer notice the book and really recommend it strongly. Its power would be in a high school and college education, and the volume of it and passing it on to the kids. That's where its potential is. It may never be realized, but it wasn't that we didn't make an effort. And so that was really the point.
I think it's great. I love it. I've been going through it all the time. I love it. And I think you guys have done a wonderful job. And like you said, at 75, although Charles Koch did just write a book at 90, but he also has, and it was actually a good book. It was actually real. What was that one? From the Bottom Up, I think. That was a good one too. But I think you guys have done an incredible job, and I love the book. Do you want to wrap it up with talking about how you get? I know it's available on Amazon, Peter.
It's available. That you can go to Hijacked One Republic, which is the webpage of our press company. You can go to Amazon and put in Hijacked One Republic. It's available as of next week. It's available on audio. It's always available on Kindle, softback and hardback, your choices. We've spoken in front of several hundred people on various occasions. We certainly, there it is, Hijacked.
It's beautiful. I love it. I'm going to get it on audio too, because I literally I got a lot of books I got to go through. So on audio, I'm on the road all the time. So
it should be good. We selected a guy to read it professionally, and he did it. And our observation doing a spot check, they did a very nice job. So we hope it turns out well.
So I have it on.
Well, I should add one point, and that is that in the book, if you get the book, there is 109 pages of the chapters. But after that, there's appendices. The appendices apply to individual chapters, so they're numbered by chapter 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. But they're lettered as a something. It's appendices 1A, B, C for chapter 1. Chapter 5 would be 5A, B, C. Some chapters don't have appendices, so the numbers don't just go automatically in order. You can have 1 plus some letters, and then skip 1 for 2, and then might have some in 3 or whatever. So if you understand that, that'll help you read more closely the chapters themselves. After you've read the book, I'd say then go back to the appendices and review the chapter, and then read the appendices.
I'm going to do just that, because I'm fascinated with the book. I loved it. So I'm going to do just that. Just like, I didn't know that, actually. I didn't realize that. So
yeah.
I haven't gotten through the whole book, but I was
That's good.
Jeff, our source of it was really Thomas Paine to kind of close the loop on it all. Thomas Paine, 1775, he wrote 4 different pamphlets that he compiled in 47 pages into Common Sense, the book called Common Sense. And that really propelled us into this, what is wrong today? What did he have in 1775 that we could create today and pay homage and reference back to what he did? He had 500,000 out of population of 2.3 million, he had 500,000 books sold. And he had certainly in boarding houses and so forth up and down the 13 colonies, hundreds of thousands read it, posted on walls. That's an amazing proposition that convinced 13 colonies to take on the largest civilization in the world had yet seen.
Viral in its time.
Yeah.
Viral in its time. And that was 500,000. That's what 25%. 25% of the people read it.
Yeah.
That's huge. We don't get anything out there that get 25. Other than, what is it? Apple iPhones have 4 billion users playing on them 5 hours a day now. That's probably 20.
Yeah, right.
So, wow, that's huge. And like I said, just circling right back to my initial comment, people are looking for wisdom. They're not just necessarily looking for technical answers anymore. We've got the AI is producing all sorts of technical answers. And
Fabric of society.
Yeah.
Wisdom, fabric of society.
Wisdom is the fabric of society. And that's what